Say Dogecoin.
Hey folks, it's Thursday. It's time for Broker Talk. Today we have a fantastic show all about Bitcoin. Um, Broker Talk is a weekly show that brings you an unvarnished truth about real estate, and we share information about what's going on in the industry and what's going on in our society. People are buying with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is our show today. Before we get to our guest, let me bring in my co host, the CEO and founder of Castles Unlimited, Jim Lowenstern.
Hi, Larry. How you doing today?
I'm thrilled that you just got your COVID shot. So
Yep,
we'll be opening up the offices pretty soon again. Be partying,
yep, yep,
I think.
yep,
Uh,
yep. With the masks until
with
they tell us otherwise.
well, if you're
Except for our Texas offices.
right, if you're vaccinated, you're allowed to have your mask off. But anyway, um,
I
that's
don't believe
nothing
that's true.
about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is cryptocurrency. A lot of people are talking about it. Many people wish they bought it when it was $100, and now today it's worth more than $56,000. Sam
I thought when it
Masursky.
was a penny.
Sam
It was
Masursky
a
is
penny at one point, right?
Oh yeah.
Sam Masursky is our guest today. He has been studying this for quite some time. He's got a website. Maybe Sam knows. Maybe that should be Sam knows. Was that already taken?
Is that a .com? Maybe
Yes.
samknows.com.
Maybe
You got to have the
samknows.com.
Yeah.
okay,
Welcome aboard, Sam.
an important part of it.
So,
Thank you guys. Good to
what
be
can you
here.
tell us about Bitcoin? It's a huge topic. Um, give a first grader overview of what Bitcoin
Yeah,
is.
I mean, Bitcoin isn't that easy to understand. So that's why the average first grader won't really get it. But, Bitcoin is a different thing to different people. Some people say it's digital gold. Some people say it's money. Some people say it's, a big speculative bubble that's going to pop any minute now. So, the most important thing to do with Bitcoin is, you have to do your own research and learn about it and really understand it. You can't invest, a portion of your wealth into something like this without educating yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do with my website, Maybe Sam Knows. And I called it that because, when I first got into it 4 years ago, I was telling my friends, guys, this is really something different here. It's really incredible. You should, learn about it yourselves. And they always, laughed at me. And um, it's very easy to dismiss Bitcoin. So my website, I call it Maybe Sam
Now,
Knows. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so are your friends still laughing? Number one. Number two, is it something to be laughed at?
No, they're
Possibly.
definitely not laughing anymore. They're actually, invested in Bitcoin pretty substantially. Most of my, closest friends have now invested into Bitcoin because, especially once Elon Musk and Tesla put $1.5 billion into
I thought
Bitcoin,
it
and
was
they put
10
it on
billion.
their, yeah, they put it onto their
It was.
balance sheet.
What Bitcoin is not is it's not legal tender. Legal tender is what each country uses to buy and sell goods. Bitcoin is not legal tender, but you can still buy and sell goods using Bitcoin. That's why I think some people get confused about it. It's an unregulated um, system of transfer of wealth. Do I
Yeah,
have
that's a
that?
pretty good. Hey, that's not too bad, Larry. Good job there. So yeah, you've got some of it there. The difference between, the US dollar and the euro and the yen, all those, currencies that you know of, that you think of when you think of money, that's what you think of. Those are all fiat monies. And what's a fiat money? It's money that's government backed, right? So what other types of money are there? Well, there's gold. That was the standard of money for 5,000 years. And the only way we got to this fiat standard, this government backed money, the US dollar standard, is first by using gold. Before we were on the US dollar fully, we were on the gold standard for 100 years. And then slowly our government took us off the gold standard. And now we just rely on the faith and full credit of the government as our money, which is the US dollar. But that's not the only money that there is. And Bitcoin is challenging that. And it's been doing it for 12 years, and it's going to keep doing it.
One of the original forms of wealth, the first one, was property. The more property you owned, the wealthier you were, and so that was before money. If you had wealth and you had people who were working your land, you had things to buy and sell and trade with. So gold standard came along much after that. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so before, the first form of money, I guess, in trade was bartering. So before there was money, people would just trade goods for other goods. So if I had a cow and you had, wood, and I needed your wood and you needed a cow, we could make a trade. But it wasn't the best way to trade, because, what if I didn't want a full, or you didn't want a full cow? What if you only needed a little bit of a cow? So there were challenges with that. So money allowed for easier transaction. And, some of the first money was seashells and shiny rocks and things that had some scarcity to them. Eventually, money became, precious metals. So silver, gold, bronze, copper, those were all forms of money. And money is, a competition. So the gold outcompeted every other form of money. So silver, bronze, it outcompeted all of those, and that became the standard of money for 5,000 years. And people used silver to transact, but they held on to gold much more, because it was the better money. And there's something called Gresham's law, which is the theory that, bad money drives out good money. So, if I have silver and gold is better money, so I'm going to use my silver, and I'll trade silver for my goods and services, and I'll hold on to my gold. And that's what's happening with Bitcoin right now. Nobody's using it to buy their cup of coffee at Starbucks, because they realize down the line that Bitcoin is going to be worth a hell of a lot more than it is now.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, and it's been happening for the past 12 years. On average, it goes up 220% per year on average over the past 12 years. And there might be 1 year or 2 years where it doesn't go up like that. But if you have a long-term mindset, this will continue to go up. But the most important thing is just educating yourself. And you can't expect to educate yourself by listening to, mainstream media, because all they talk about is the price fluctuation and crazy stories about hacks and stuff like that, and that'll scare you. But the Bitcoin network has never been hacked. People have left their passphrase, their keys on their computer, and then their computer has been hacked, but Bitcoin has never been hacked. So if you're just trying to get your information from mainstream media, or if you Google, a couple articles, that's not how you really understand Bitcoin. And that's why I try to get across to people that to really invest your money into it, you have to put in the time. And It took me months to really feel comfortable about all this. And that's what I'm trying to convey to people. The average person.
Ahead, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Okay. So Sam, how did you start? Did you go to Coinbase?
I started
kind of
by.
Money,
Yeah, good question. A friend of mine on Twitter that I followed was talking about it, and I had heard about it 4 years prior, in 2013, but I dismissed it as some crazy thing, whatever. I didn't even think twice about it. And he was talking about it a lot in 2017, early 2017, and I decided to do some research, and I started to learn about it, and I put in money. So yes, Coinbase was the exchange that I used. And that's the most important thing. I feel like you have to put in a little money, you know, get some skin in the game. And then once you have a little skin in the game, you're much more likely to take the time to now educate yourself. And that's what happened with me. Once I had some money on the line, I just, you know, I started to educate myself. And the more you educate yourself, the more you want to buy Bitcoin.
Right.
It's something like education leads to allocation, and that's incredibly true with Bitcoin. So that's sort of what happened.
So a Bitcoin right now, as I said, is over $56,000. Some people think you buy a coin, but you don't. You're investing in Bitcoin, and so you could put $1,000, you could put $100 in. The reason why we wanted to bring you on the show is that in the real estate industry now people are buying houses using Bitcoin. Both sides have to agree to it, and the sale price, if whatever that sale price is, that's what you determine the number of Bitcoin that you get for it. So it's a simple transaction in that way, but you don't come to the closing table with a handful of coins. That's not the way it works.
How does that transaction actually take place? Because if I sell my house and I say, yeah, I'm willing to take Bitcoin, I don't want to leave the closing table with Bitcoin. I want dollars.
Of course. Well, you might, but some people
Yeah.
may not. But
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. So what you would do is you could write it into the contract. You know, you could say, you know, the closing date is this date, and on this date, whatever the exchange rate for a Bitcoin is, that's how much you owe. So if it's $1 million, you know, you need to come up with $1 million worth of Bitcoin at that time, and you transfer it. It's all digital. Remember, it's not physical. You don't have coins in your pocket. So it's all digital. You transfer it to the owner of the house's wallet. They have their own wallet. You know, you can set up a wallet on Coinbase. So you send that Bitcoin to Coinbase, and then you can sell it on Coinbase like that. You know, Coinbase deals with, you know, I think over probably hundreds of millions of dollars a day in transactions. So they can sell $1 million, $2 million very easy without moving the price at all. So you can make that trade from Bitcoin to dollars very quickly.
So the things
Coinbase is going public. I just want to ask Sam this. Coinbase is going public. I don't know how soon, but I hear it's going to be soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard this question: if you're going to make an investment, do you make it in the IPO of Coinbase or do you do it in Bitcoin? The same investment in Bitcoin. Which would you go with?
That's a very good question. People have asked me that, or similar, you know, companies, and I say it is always better to just invest in Bitcoin. It's much easier, and you know, as long as you're looking in the long term, you know, Bitcoin is where you want to be. If you want to make a quick buck, you know, maybe Coinbase's, you know, stock will go up in 1 month or 3 months faster than Bitcoin. But for the long run, I definitely suggest everybody buy Bitcoin.
Well, Bitcoin has a 12-year track record of going up.
Right, but the other thing it has is a track record of huge fluctuations. Went up to 20,000, went down to what, 4,000, 5,000?
Yep. Yeah, so it is
75% haircut.
Yeah, it is very volatile. And that's why I try to tell people, like, the most important thing, you have to educate yourself, because if you own Bitcoin and you see it go from, you know, what is it at now, 60,000 or whatever to 40,000, you know, you're gonna want to sell it because you're gonna be like, wait, what's going on? I don't, you know,
it go back down to a penny, because that's what people say. They say, what's it worth? Well, it's either worth $1 million or it's worth nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty binary.
Big delta.
Yeah, it's pretty binary. It's a very asymmetric bet, you know. That's why I tell people, just invest a small percentage of your portfolio in it, you know. That way, you know, if it does go to zero, you're not living on the street. But if it does what I think and what a lot of really smart people think it's going to do, it's going to be not just $1 million, it's going to be well over that. So
okay, so let's talk about the other digital currencies, the other tokens. Doge, Ethereum. I mean,
There's thousands.
Yeah,
There are many
yeah.
of them. I just wanted to say we started the show and it was 56,700 something. It's right at this moment. It's 58,000. So it's gone up in the time that we have been here on the show.
Because they're listening to the show.
I hope so. I hope so. Um, but there are a variety. Back to Jim's statement, there are a number of them. Doge is one of the more popular ones, but
Yeah.
um, wouldn't you want to go with the one that's the original?
Yeah, not just the original, but Bitcoin is competing to be money. Um, that's a big deal. And it's competing with first gold, and then eventually it's going to be competing with the US dollar and every other fiat currency and all these other digital currencies. They were created because Bitcoin originally proved that this is a real thing, it has value, and it's here to stay. And all those other currencies, they're not competing as money. It's like playing the casino, going to the casino and throwing, a couple hundred on black or, number seven and hoping it works out. But you might win, you might outperform Bitcoin in the short term, but in the long term, if you look at any price chart of any of these currencies against Bitcoin for over 2, 3, 4 years, I mean, they're all trending towards zero. So it's very easy to, a lot of people have cost unit bias, which is, Bitcoin's worth $55,000. I missed the boat on Bitcoin, right? But Dogecoin is worth 5 cents. Maybe Dogecoin will be the next Bitcoin. And, that's easy to do because people don't understand, what's actually happening and why Bitcoin is worth so much. And it's all about network effects, and Bitcoin has the network effect.
Would seem to me.
Let's talk about the scarcity factor also.
Sure,
How does
sure.
that factor in?
I mean, that's everything. That's everything. Unlike the US dollar, where it's literally infinite, the Federal Reserve can print as much as they want, as we've seen. Bitcoin has 21 million. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And I know exactly how many there are now, and I know exactly when the last Bitcoin will be mined, which is in the year 2140. And everything's out in the open. The source, the software is open source. So everybody sees the rules and everybody plays by the same rules. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, as opposed to, the US dollar, where the Federal Reserve and the, politicians, they're the ones who are in charge of it. With Bitcoin, nobody is in charge and everybody sees the rules and everybody plays by the same rules.
So this is going to be fractional out to 1,000 decimal points. I mean, 21 million. In hindsight, they should have made it 21 billion or something like
No,
that.
no, I mean, that's yeah, a lot of people say that, but it really doesn't matter what the number was. Satoshi, the inventor, creator, anonymous of Bitcoin, picked 21 million, but it really didn't matter what number it was. It just matters that Bitcoin is divisible, and every Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million units. Each unit is called a Satoshi, after the inventor, Satoshi Nakamoto. And
Fictional
so,
character.
yeah, not fictional. He's synonymous. So he wanted to, he didn't want anybody to know his identity for that exact reason. Like, Bitcoin is decentralized. Nobody is in control of it. So even he didn't want people to, he's been out of the project for 10 years now. He released the code. He helped it grow, bootstrap it in its early years, in the first couple of years, and then he left the project and he left it into the hands of the community, and he hasn't been heard of since. And that's very.
He's too busy spending his billions of dollars.
No, he actually hasn't spent any of it. There's a wallet with most of the Bitcoin that he mined in the early days, which is how you get Bitcoin. You mine it, or you can buy it now, obviously. But in the early days, you could only get it by mining it, by using your computer processing power to mine it. And he has maybe 800,000, 900,000 coins in there. That's, billions of dollars, but that hasn't been touched since 10 years ago. And I don't think it will ever move. So
Maybe
yeah.
he died.
Maybe he died. Maybe he died. Could be anything. But it really doesn't matter anymore who Satoshi is, because it's much bigger than one person. It's a global, decentralized phenomenon.
So you're saying it can be broken up into each coin into 1 million
100 million. 100 million.
100 million.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it can actually be even further divisible. All that would have to happen is consensus would have to agree that we could divide it even further. Again, it's software. It grows, it changes. There's the best developers in the world are working on Bitcoin 24/7.
So if it grows, can't they say, let's add another 10 million?
Sorry, by grows, I mean the software grows and it's worked on and it's made better and improved. It's programmable. I didn't mean that the actual number of Bitcoin.
We'll talk about blockchain after the ad.
Yeah, let's break and we'll be right back.
When you are searching for a new home, you want to be working with a realtor with years of experience, a professional with intimate knowledge of the communities that you are considering moving to, and someone who really wants to represent you as a buyer in what is probably the largest investment you will ever make in your lifetime. The realtors at Castles Unlimited want to be your choice when you are ready to make your next move. Please visit us at castlesunlimited.com or call us anytime at 800-967-3561. The realtors at Castles Unlimited are here to help your next purchase, lease, or sale of any real estate the easiest decision you've ever made.
Welcome back. We're talking about Bitcoin with Sam Scarcity, maybe samknows.com if you have any questions for him. So it's really interesting how everyone is wondering what this is, and there aren't as many first movers as you would. Is there a correlation between a Bitcoin and, for instance, the stock? Like if you'd bought Apple back in the beginning or Google or any of those. Is there any kind of relationship in the way the value of this has grown? Or is it some other thing?
I'm not really quite sure. What do you mean by the correlation between the?
You're talking about the chart. Is there any chart that looks like it?
What I'm talking about is valuation. So Bitcoin's valuation is based on, Apple's valuation is based on the company and the products. What is Bitcoin's valuation based on?
Good question. It's based off of supply and demand and how much value people have in it, right? So that's the price. It's just, if the price is going to go up if there's more buyers than sellers. The price is going to go down if there's more sellers than buyers. And that's all it is. The same as gold. It's a commodity, the same as gold, right? The value of gold is dependent on how many people value gold. If less people value gold, the price of gold will go down. Same as Bitcoin.
So you think there's going to be a point where the fluctuations will be less severe?
Yeah, the volatility, if you actually look at it over time, since the beginning, the volatility has decreased. Every single bubble that, people say it's a bubble, right? And there's bubbles. The first one was in 2011, I think, when it was under $1 and it went up to over $20. And then it crashed down to a couple bucks. And then the next year it went from a couple bucks to over $100. And it crashed to $20. And then it went to 1,000. And then crashed to 200. But if you can see the pattern there, every time it crashes, it's higher than it was before. And then it makes a new all-time high. And why does that happen? Well, it's something called the halving. So the new supply of Bitcoin gets cut in half every 4 years. So in 2009, when the
Whoa, slow down. Explain that. What does that mean?
So Bitcoin is mined the same way gold is mined, right? Gold is mined out of the earth with machines, with very heavy machines, and it costs a lot of money to mine that gold. Energy, you have to pay people, right? The same with Bitcoin. It is mined, but it is mined using computers, right? So you have these computers racing to basically solve this puzzle, this math puzzle, you could call it. And the first computer that solves it correctly is rewarded with the new Bitcoin that are given out each block. And each block happens, it's about every 10 minutes. And in 2009, when the code was first released, every block reward was 50 Bitcoin. And and every 4 years, that reward gets cut in half. So in 2013, it got cut in half to 25. 4 years later, it was 12 and a half. And now where we are now, it's 6.25. And 3 years from now, it will be 3. So if you can see, the supply is shrinking, but the demand, more and more people, as they learn about Bitcoin and as they come to the realization of what this is, the demand is growing. So you have demand going higher and supply is getting cut in half. So there's only one way the price can really go.
It's a global economy.
Blockchain. Does blockchain play into this, and how do you define or describe blockchain?
Yes, blockchain is.
How do you educate us about blockchain?
Yeah, definitely. Blockchain is a good buzzword that is used by a lot of people, and Bitcoin uses a blockchain. But that's not the only thing that makes Bitcoin, special, basically. But a blockchain is just a ledger, right? A database, but it's a decentralized, immutable database. So once you have something on the blockchain, so I mentioned it earlier, there's a block that happens every 10 minutes. So every transaction that occurred, let's say I send 1 Bitcoin to Jim, that will be added to the block. And that transaction, once it is added to the blockchain, it is stamped there, and it can not be changed ever, right? So that's
there
all
one blockchain?
Yeah, and then you have a block, and then you chain that to the next block, and then you chain that to the next block every 10 minutes. So it's a blockchain to the next block. So that's why they call it a blockchain. But all it is it's a database. It's a ledger.
Is there only one blockchain for all the currencies, and
all the Bitcoin
fungible tokens, and
all the Bitcoin?
No, so Bitcoin has a blockchain,
Bitcoin.
But every coin does have their own version of a blockchain. But the difference between Bitcoin and every other coin is the security of the Bitcoin blockchain. In order to attack, and that's the most important thing when we're talking about money, right? Like, if you're going to put a lot of money into this, you need to make sure that this thing is secure. Nobody can, change the amount of Bitcoin that you have, that you're holding, or that you're sending, right? That nobody can lie and try to cheat, right? And the way that works is through these miners who are spending a lot of money and energy and processing power to secure the network. And that's the big difference between Bitcoin and every other blockchain. They are not very secure at all. It would be very easy to attack them. Whereas Bitcoin has, it would cost tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to first get the processing power needed to try to attack the network, and then also for the energy usage. But even if they were to do that, there's many ways around it, and there's a lot of game theory to it. So it's not the most simple thing.
It's brilliant.
What about other Bitcoins? There was like a split, and then it was
Yep. There's a fork. It's called a fork.
A fork?
So Bitcoin Cash. There's Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and this was a huge deal. It's called the Bitcoin Civil War of 2017. So back then there was concern about how Bitcoin would scale, because it can't handle the same amount of transactions as, say, Visa or whatever. So some people wanted to increase the block size of Bitcoin, right, to allow for more transactions. But there's always trade-offs, and the trade-off for that is you would have far more centralization. So right now I can run a computer, it's called a node, a full node, and I can verify that the miners are playing by the rules and that they're not going to cheat. And I can do that on a computer that costs $200 easily and practically zero energy costs. But if we were to increase the block size, normal people like me wouldn't be able to run a computer, and it would be outsourced to server farms and companies who would have to be running these full nodes. And now you're becoming much more centralized. And that's the whole beauty of Bitcoin. It's decentralized in nature.
So how did Bitcoin Cash do over the last 3 or 4 years after the fork?
Yeah, good question. So not very well. At first it did okay, and then I think right now it's worth like $500. So it's less than 1% of Bitcoin's market cap. So that's the beauty of Bitcoin. It's all about free market. The market decided who Bitcoin, what's really Bitcoin, right? And the market chose Bitcoin, not Bitcoin Cash. And that's clear. That's obvious.
So that's like Bitcoin Lite and the other's Bitcoin Classic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's Bitcoin Gold, there's Bitcoin's Satoshi's Vision, and like they were all. It was the hot thing 4 years ago, but that's, that's no longer an issue because people have realized there's no value to that. Nobody really cares, and it's clear.
And what about the ETFs that are investing in this for people that don't want to do the whole
hold the underlying
themselves?
asset? Yeah. So for people that don't want to hold the underlying asset, there's no ETF right now in America. They did come out with one in Canada. Some American brokerages will let you buy the Canadian one. I don't know. Myself, I can't. So what I do in my Roth IRA, I actually own GBTC, which is a trust that you can buy. And the price of GBTC correlates with the price of Bitcoin. So it's a way to get exposure to Bitcoin without actually owning the underlying asset. So that's a great way. I tell people to, if they're worried about, everything that comes with owning Bitcoin, you can also get some exposure in this other way by owning GBTC.
This is a really fascinating topic, and we could go another 3 shows with this. You will come back at some point.
Yeah, we have more to cover, so we'll have to have Sam back.
I'm happy to. I love talking about it.
Coming back.
Sam,
Okay,
awesome. This has been really awesome. Thank you so much. And tune in next week to Broker Talk and find out more stuff about what's going on in the real estate industry. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
All right.